Hello again, and welcome to the 16th episode of the podcast, Simple Enlightenment. I'm your host, Dean Graves. We greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. This episode continues where the previous episode leaves off, by explaining a general overview of how it works. The uniqueness of a personality is the creator learning of the self by experiencing the self uniquely. The experiential densities, third, fourth, and fifth, provide us with the opportunity to relearn of and about the creator by exploration and discovery of the self. In third density, we are tasked with learning of the inherent characteristics through the lens of saw, or awareness, and the archetypical mind is strategically designed to facilitate this. When we learn of the inherent characteristics through the lens of awareness, it means that we must become awareness through the opening of the fourth and fifth chakra, and potentially the sixth chakra, and then simply continue to have experiences, but with the enhanced ability to recognize greater truth in each experience. After we adequately learn of the lessons of third density and graduate to fourth density, we will relearn the inherent characteristics through the eyes of Ra, or love. In order to accomplish this, we must become love, just as we are to become awareness in third density. Relearning the inherent characteristics by becoming love is not the task of third density, because it requires the foundations afforded by becoming awareness and acquiring the level of consciousness that corresponds to fourth density. The ability to totally experience the one infinite creator is available in every thought, but the design dictates that we proceed through the process incrementally, so that we may explore the depth and breadth of every dimension that we evolve through. It is the completeness of every experience uniquely interpreted that is the goal, not the speed with which we may progress through evolution. No matter where in the evolution of consciousness we may currently reside, the experience is perfect. It may not be joy-filled or comfortable, but it is exactly the lesson we require now because we have chosen it as a result of careful reflection of our current needs. Once we graduate to fifth density, we will learn to become wisdom, and through the lens of wisdom, or law, we will continue to relearn of inherent characteristics. Evolution can be understood to be a course of study in which we are simply progressing from one course topic to the next, in the sequence necessary to enhance our greatest learning opportunities. In the process, we are systematically overcoming the conditions of third density that initially set us on the evolutionary track, naked and afraid, and ultimately concludes with our reunification with the Creator. The fifth density is the last density served by the archetypical mind, and the strategic placement of law, or wisdom, into the individual archetype modules reflects this. Towards the latter stages of our evolution through the fifth density, we begin to prepare for a reintroduction into sixth density, the density of unity. The archetypes Ya, or unity, and Ka, stillness, the focus of sixth and seventh density respectively, are included as a subcurrent in all of the modules and mixed into various modules of the archetypical mind, but we lack the consciousness to become unity or stillness until we graduate out of the experiential densities. Each individual module of the archetypical mind has an archetype as an initial object, or logos, and as an initial subject, or sublogos. The archetypical characteristics of the initial object logos establish the characteristics of the module when we begin our journey, and will continue to do so as long as we remain in the lower consciousness ranges of the density. This is the period of our evolution where we are primarily learning what we don't like and functioning with only the lower three time-space chakras open. As we continue to have experiences, having developed a resume of things we don't like, we can begin to activate awareness and either integrate the initial object logo's archetypical characteristic with the archetypical characteristics of the subject sublogos, or exchange roles so that the initial archetypical characteristics of the object logos become the subject sublogos and the initial archetypical characteristics of the subject sublogos become the object logos. The internal workings of the module indicate that the position of the object and the subject remain unchanged, but our capacity to prioritize the contributions of each does change as we increase awareness and select the behavior characteristics more aligned with our escalating consciousness. We regulate the contributions of the archetypical mind based upon the recognition and balance of our personal power. Where the initial object logos is a distortion, Ta, Da, or Lucifer, the module offers an archetypical characteristic called a condition. The conditions create a basic element of the distortion of our third density experience, and as we raise our consciousness, these conditions become naturally surrendered to truth. The conditions created and surrendered to truth include such things as the ego and I perspective, but also include other distortions such as time, movement, and authenticity of physicality. One condition is not necessarily limited to an individual module, but may be created by the combined contributions of two or more modules. Two modules begin as conditions while we are naive in our journey, but we transform their contributions to become algorithms as we overcome unconsciousness. Another two serve as the starting point and ending point for the entire evolutionary journey through the experiential densities. One of these is identified as the alpha and is populated with a distortion in both the object and subject position, and the other as the omega, and both the subject and object are populated with the same inherent characteristic archetype, requiring the two modules to be harmonized and integrated into unity before we can complete the experiential journey. All of the other 19 modules are in between the alpha and omega modules and provide the mystery for the journey between the two. Most of the modules are algorithmic and are constructed solely of inherent characteristic archetypes in both the object logos and subject sublogos positions. Each of the 15 algorithmic modules provides a unique and specific function to the mind depending upon the position of the module within the flow of the thought process. The algorithmic modules do not exchange priority of the initial object logos and the initial subject sublogos, but integrate them as we learn to raise our consciousness and balance the workings of the two archetypes. 15 modules are algorithms because each one contributes only a portion of the solution to the equation we are calling the archetypical mind, and function as a single gear within a machine. When we are able to synchronize the functioning of the algorithmic modules and integrated the alpha and omega modules, we will have achieved the criteria for graduation from the experiential densities, not just third density, and move into sixth density unity. One might say that the entire archetypical mind's purpose is to create an enhanced illusion of separation from the Creator, while providing a roadmap and breadcrumbs to lead us back to unity with the Creator. As we relearn of the inherent characteristics from the perspective of awareness in third density, the perspective of love in fourth density, and the perspective of wisdom in fifth density, we are overcoming the conditions and the archetypical mind. Conditions are just a result of the spacesuit effect, and as we raise our consciousness through the processing of thoughts, also known as having experiences, they just dissolve. We naturally substitute the distortions and illusions with truth. Archetypical minds that serve other logos or solar systems within our universe will share a similar mixing and matching of the same 9 archetypes that comprise our archetypical mind. The closer the apparent physical proximity to our solar system, the more likely the design of the archetypical mind is very similar to ours. The further away the solar system seems to be geographically, the greater the likelihood that the archetypical mind design will have significant deviations from ours. The mind-body-spirit. Integral to the design and function of the archetypical mind is the construction of the mind-body-spirit. The ordering of the mind-body-spirit is a reflection of the function of the individual aspects as it relates to the archetypical mind. The function of a mind, any mind, is to process thought, and prioritizing the mind first before the body and spirit indicates that the mind is the primary processing unit when we begin, but also suggests the spirit's potential substitution of priority as we evolve through the densities. The mind is created by an increased intoxication of free will, and therefore is more the creator as the subject, and the spirit is more the creator as the object, with less free will intoxication relative to the mind. The purpose of creation is for the creator to learn of itself by experiencing itself, and so the mind, the creator as the subject, is given prominence in leading the interpretation of experience until such time as the mind-body-spirit sufficiently evolves to know that all is one, and voluntarily surrenders its overabundance of free will to the spirit. The body has no intelligence, but contributes to the choices of the mind by reporting on the illusions of the perceived physical world and reflecting the condition of the mind-spirit balance. Within the archetypical mind, the column of mind modules assumes the lead by directing a thought step by step through the categories. Until the mind-body-spirit activates the spirit portion of itself by opening the fourth time-space heart chakra, the mind functions as a tyrannical demagogue dictating the disposition of every thought process based upon fears and biases. Its only contributing cohort is the body that is reporting the physical sensory data input to the mind with every thought processed, and then reflecting the mind's decisions in its appearance and health. Once processed through the three experience categories of the archetypical mind, the fruit of that process is forwarded to the mind modules of the matrix and potentiator categories so they may use it to modify the mind-body-spirit before attracting the next thought to be processed. The mind module of the catalyst category begins the processing of a new thought because it receives the new thought attracted by the modified resonance of the mind-body-spirit and begins the processing. The mind module of the catalyst category contributes its input to the thought, and the thought with the input from the catalyst category is passed along to the mind module of the experience category. The experience category contributes its input and passes the thought and cumulative input from both the catalyst and experience categories along to the significator category, etc. When a thought is processed, it is received into the catalyst through the mind module, processed through the other activated catalyst modules, and from the catalyst mind's module, passed along in sequence to the next category. While a thought is being entertained by the catalyst of the mind, it sends the content of the thought first to the body, and after the spirit portion has been activated to the spirit with the instructions to report the module's input to the mind. Whether the spirit portion of the mind-body-spirit has been activated or not, the mind remains the decision maker of how the thought will be processed while we remain within the experiential densities. The mind reviews the input provided by body and spirit and rules on how the thought will be interpreted for the category before it passes the thought on to the next category above. The processing of a thought through the mind-body-spirit is not a democracy of the three elements, because the mind is the undisputed dictator until it voluntarily relinquishes authority to the spirit. With every thought process, the mind may choose to weight the input from the body only, as is the case while we remain in lower consciousness, or receive and incorporate the input from spirit along with the body, as is the case when spirit has been activated. The more dictatorial the mind remains in processing thought with only the input from the body, the more pain and suffering the mind-body-spirit will experience. The more the mind surrenders control to the spirit, the greater happiness and greater ability to recognize truth is available to the mind-body-spirit as a whole. This is important to understand because as long as we retain a significant ego, or perception of separation, the mind resides under the influence of unconsciousness and will ignore the input from the spirit. That means that the mind is basing its interpretation of all thought with only the input from the body, which offers no added intelligence, and the mind's limited intelligence is predicated upon the distortions or conditions of the archetypical mind. In other words, the mind, because of its limitations, insists upon interpreting life from the perspective of the ego, which is ignorance. During this phase of evolutionary experiences, we are living life with only the first, second, and maybe the third chakras open, while we experience what we don't like. We are exercising our free will by turning our own wheel of fate, and encountering stiff opposition to finding what we like from all directions. At best, we have become aware, but not yet able to become awareness, and therefore have yet to begin to lift ourselves out of the chaos of third density, as imposed by the conditions of the archetypical mind. Until we open the fourth time-space chakra, we are only able to experience a minimal consciousness level. We are functioning without access to the spirit portion of our being. We remain in pain and suffering, firmly lashed to the wheel of samsara and fully experiencing the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. We remain mesmerized by the authenticity of the physical and the perspective that we are victims of life. We can only see ourselves as separate from the Creator and that we live in a physical world of dichotomy. The conditions created by the distortions that comprise many of the initial modules of the archetypical mind are our reality, and we are unable to see much, if any, of the truth in which we swim. How the archetypical mind works. By itself, the archetypical mind does not work. The archetypical mind is a process template that funnels a thought through its maze. A thought contains an environment and a catalyst processed and experienced as a holographic film or program being played through a mind-body-spirit complex's projector, which we interpret as life. The experience of time is the experience of thought being processed through the archetypical mind while we are incarnate in space-time. Thoughts continue to be processed through the archetypical mind while we are in time-space, but by comparison, it is like the bulb in the projector is switched to dim. The environments that are a part of thought, whether in space-time or time-space, are a series of refinements with each subsequent environment being refined from a more general environment that precedes it. The thought of creation is the one relatively complete thought of 8th density. The thoughts of 7th density are less complete because they are more specific and more narrowly defined than the one thought of 8th density. 6th density thoughts are a refinement of 7th density thoughts and are less complete than 7th density because, according to the level of prevailing consciousness, they allow for a further modification of the ability of the experiencing mind-body-spirit to recognize the degree of truth available. 7th density recognizes less truth in a single thought than 8th density, and 6th density recognizes less truth in a single thought than 7th density. This is the process of refinement that allows the dissection of the mind-body-spirit, Creator as the subject, through observation of the various behaviors that emerge according to its ability to perceive truth. Sixth density produces thought for the experiential densities, and sixth density is a fractal of seventh density. All experiential density thoughts are refinements of sixth density thoughts that are created or refined specifically for the experiential densities. The refinement of thoughts for experiential densities anticipates a broad range of consciousness capacity to recognize truth within thought because it incorporates three significantly different densities. Thoughts are not further refined within the experiential densities, which means that thoughts are not refined into fifth, fourth, and third density thoughts. We will essentially process the same thoughts in fifth density that we do in third density. The distinction between third density thoughts and fifth density thoughts is the ability of the processing mind-body-spirit to recognize and extract truth from the thought based solely upon the consciousness level of the individuals. Mind fractals. All of the minds of creation are a series of step-downs from the mind of the Creator, which is identified as the All-Mind. The All-Mind is inherent to the Creator's beingness and is indistinguishable from the wholeness of the Creator. The All-Mind is a concept, an environment within which creation may be constructed, and it is synonymous with intelligent infinity without distinction. The spirit portion of our mind-body-spirit is exactly the same spirit that is the one infinite Creator, and it ultimately cannot be diluted or lessened in any way, but it can and is significantly obscured from awareness. It is the Polaris light of our beingness, and it is our creatorness. The spirit creates the mind, and the mind is governed by the degree of intoxication of free will to allow us to obscure our perception of spirit and allow us to participate in the different levels of consciousness we call densities. The mind is our distorted perception of self. As the intoxication of free will increases, expanding the preeminence of the mind, we perceive ourselves to be further removed from the wholeness of the Creator. As we surrender our free will, we simultaneously surrender the mind and incrementally increase the awareness of self as the Creator again. We return to where we began, seeing it again as if for the first time. From the wholeness of the Creator's undistorted being, the concept of mind within creation is both created and refined by application of the increased intoxication of free will. First to the cosmic mind of eighth density, and subsequently to the seventh density cosmic mind. The eighth density cosmic mind is also an environment that serves as the concept for the development and construction of creation. It is only distinguishable from the all-mind because it perceives of itself as possessing free will and therefore being separate from the all-mind of the Creator. The seventh density cosmic mind is a refinement of the eighth density cosmic mind, which means it perceives of itself from the perspective of an increased intoxication of free will. It also becomes a mind-body-spirit at this level. In addition to the delineation of the inherent characteristics, it enters into the system of coding designed to fractalize the layers of consciousness we know as the densities, all made possible because of the intoxication of free will. The cosmic minds of seventh density also serve as environments for the further development, diversification, and construction of creation. In sixth density, the mind is stepped down again to become the root mind, which again is accomplished by the increased intoxication of free will. The root mind of sixth density is also an environment, and it is constructed as a mind-body-spirit participating in the evolutionary coding system that governs fractalized consciousness. When seventh density consciousness is defined as a fractal, as a result of the increased free will intoxication, it becomes a co-creator of the evolutionary process, as does sixth density consciousness. The root mind differs significantly from the cosmic mind of seventh density in several respects. The root mind of the sixth density is constructed by increased intoxication of free will over seventh density, but it also is more intensely directly feeling and experiencing the experiences of creation. It is at the sixth density level that distortions as archetypes are introduced to expand and diversify the development tools of creation beyond the inherent characteristics. The deep mind of the experiential densities is a significant deviation from the root mind of sixth density. The deep mind is not an environment, but becomes the primary experiencing aspect of a mind-body-spirit within the foundational and experiential density environments. Consciousness of the creator beings holds the perspective of free will, but within the experiential densities, the deep mind, significant additional free will is added to the extent that it constructs an ego. Even more free will is added to further intoxicating consciousness in the foundational and experiential densities, but in addition, consciousness is modified from a sixth density level to reduce its working ability. A reduction in working ability is accomplished by restricting the flow of intelligent energy through the mind-body-spirit's energy system, which literally functions similarly to installing a governor on the fuel injection system of your car. The full potential of your car's engine remains intact, but because it cannot get enough fuel to burn, it can only access a limited portion of its potential power. The restricted flow of energy significantly compounds the intoxicating effects of free will by limiting the mind-body-spirit's working capacity by depriving it of the intelligent energy or fuel that it needs to realize its potential power. Within the experiential densities, the fifth density experiences the greatest flow of intelligent energy or fuel and functions with the greatest capacity to experience the most complete truth in the thoughts that it processes. Fourth density experiences an increased flow of intelligent energy over third density, but less than fifth density. Third density is the most deprived of the flow of intelligent energy within the experiential densities, which allows for the creation of the ego mind and the extreme perception of separation from the creator that begins the third density journey. Regardless of the chaos that may ensue from the domination of the ego mind at the early stages of third density, the deep mind is always prevalent, running like an underground river underneath the turbulence of the ego mind. All mind-body spirits experiencing an experiential density experience the same potential flow of intelligent energy as every other mind-body spirit sharing the density. In third density, the flow of intelligent energy through the space-time chakra system becomes baffled because of the collection of emotional baggage. Healing in third density is the process of clearing the emotional baggage through awareness to facilitate the free flow of intelligent energy through the time-space and space-time chakra system, enough to allow further opening of the time-space chakras and recognition of truth. It is simply the process of surrendering the chaos and distortions of the ego mind to allow the mind-body spirit to function at its full capacity, which signals its readiness to do fourth density work. The ego is the result of enhancing free will to the point of establishing the ego mind as the governing aspect of the mind-body spirit in third density and in the service to self factions in all experiential densities. In third density, the ego, also known as ego mind, is dominant, while the mind-body spirit remains within the ignorance of unconsciousness and the throes of the resulting chaos. For those polarizing service to others, evolution through the experiential densities is the process of surrendering the ego mind to incrementally allow the experience of the deep mind. Beginning with the cosmic mind of seventh density, the environmental refinements of each fractal and/or diversification assumes a racial mind quality. While raw, or love, may be an inherent characteristic of the creator, it is distinguishable from the other four inherent characteristics. The qualities of love become manifest into the experiences of behavioral characteristics and, relatively speaking, assume racial qualities that define a mind or further fractalization of the original template. The same is true of each of the other four inherent characteristics, and the racial qualities of each becomes further refined with each new diversification or dilution. Paradoxically, the delineation of an inherent characteristic does not isolate or segregate that characteristic from the other four aspects. For example, law or wisdom is still love, stillness, unity, and awareness, and wisdom, but the dominance of consciousness is that of law, which is what provides the racial aspect. The sixth density root mind is a fractal of the seventh density cosmic mind, and the consciousness of seventh density. The sixth density root mind is created within the flavoring of a racial mind of the seventh density inherent characteristic. In addition to the additional distortions that occur in sixth density and that become archetypes, something extra special and significant occurs as the fractal of sixth density is experienced. At the root mind level, intelligence is indistinguishable from the corpus of the mind. As a product of the fractalization of the root mind into the deep mind emerges with the ability to have intelligence segregated from the corpus of the mind and make it a variable. Varying intelligence within mind-body spirits makes every experience infinitely diverse in addition to the already infinite diversity afforded by the changes in consciousness level, the environment, and the variety of catalysts. Those of us having shared the third density experience and now sharing the fourth density experience of Earth often determine the value of an individual's worth according to their ability to retain and manipulate information about the physical world. The irony is that all of the information about the physical world we learn and all of the PhDs and MDs we collect as evidence of our intelligence is lost when we die because it is only about the illusions of third density. The only information accumulated and carried forward from lifetime to lifetime is that information that is gained from a direct intuitive experience of the Creator. Intelligence can be used to enhance the intuitive abilities and can result in a greater understanding of the inherent characteristics, but it still requires awakening, surrendering the ego, and becoming awareness. In third density, when we raise our consciousness to open the heart chakra and activate the spirit portion of our mind-body spirit, we begin to be able to intuitively directly experience the Creator. We become awareness and are able to learn of the inherent characteristics through that lens. Until such time as we sufficiently surrender the free will to allow ourselves to have such experiences, we are just going through the motions of collecting more of what we don't like, using intelligence to make us more successful in a minute-by-minute battle for energy, and possibly becoming more knowledgeable about the illusions created by the third density archetypical mind. It is for the foundational and experiential densities that the archetypical mind is designed. There is a dramatic difference in the purpose, function, and abilities of each of these densities, but the archetypical mind is designed to serve each of them without change. That is, the design of the archetypical mind doesn't change, but consciousness changes, and consequently, how the archetypical mind serves its journey through evolution in each density level is significantly different. This concludes episode 16 of Simple Enlightenment, and we thank you for listening. We hope you are enjoying these presentations and suggest that you go to our website at podcastenlightenment.org to download transcripts of this episode and others. Included in the transcripts, especially the episodes presenting information on the archetypical mind, are illustrations that will aid your comprehension. While at podcastenlightenment.org, we ask that you take a moment to make a donation. Simple Enlightenment is entirely listener-funded, and we rely upon the generosity of listeners like you to support our effort to change the world by providing truth to all who are willing to listen. Also, on the website, you will find a list of suggested readings, guided meditations to help you begin a meditation practice, and a calendar of presentations and/or events. If you are finding these podcasts helpful, we ask that you share them with family and friends that you believe may also find them helpful. The more people that undertake the process of surrendering an attachment to distortions and incorporating truth into their lives, the more quickly we may begin to see significant changes in how the world behaves. We encourage you to use the information provided through these podcasts as topics of conversation, investigation, or self-exploration to deepen your understanding and benefit. Until next time, we leave you in the love and the light of the One Infinite Creator. Theme music by Dr. Ken Wendt.